Welcome back, everyone. We are continuing the story of Jin Hyuk, whose favorite game turned into reality, and he is using his game knowledge to get super strong and steal all the skills. If you haven't watched the previous part, the link is in the description. Today's like goal is 1,000 likes, and I know you guys will reach it instantly. So go ahead and smash that like button and subscribe for more videos in the future. So let's continue the story. The 4-story pagoda was carved out of large pieces of granite. There were 3 stone statues equipped with armor, spears, and swords in front of the place that stored the key for the inner chamber. Considering that there should have been at least 10 times as many statues here, this just felt like 3 dogs were left in an empty house. Jin Hyuk stretched his body. I wish you didn't have a brain. He wouldn't be intimidated if there was an overwhelming skill difference. But they were just puppets that moved. In a way, the brainless, heartless army was the strongest force there. Jin Hyuk took a defensive stance. Shall I come, or will you come? It was like asking them that if they didn't come first, they would be giving up something important. Did they understand him? The stone statues stamped their feet on the ground, and they moved. Jin Hyuk raised his shield up. The beauty of a shield's function was in its ability to disperse the shock. The stone statues' swords and spears simply scraped the shield before passing him. Now, Jin Hyuk, confident of his timing, twisted his body 360 degrees. The dagger that was boosted by the addition of his body's rotational force pierced through the head of one of the statues. It was great that he could do this in an instant. Jin Hyuk then held the dagger and aimed it at another statue. Now with its leg broken, the stone statue collapsed to the ground. This was because Jin Hyuk had aimed at its joints that were used for movement. Spit out the key, I am tired already. Hearing these words, the statues took a step back. Jin Hyuk continued to destroy the statues. The statue at the back line screamed suddenly and stretched out its hand to the stone pagoda, and then took out the golden key which had been inside it. What was this? Was it trying to hand over the key in exchange for its life? The stone statue thrust the key into his chest. The key that leads to the main room responds. Gate is activated. The being from beyond the gate answers the call. Successive notification windows popped up. The air around the temple began to change. This one is more ambitious than I expected. He didn't think a stone statue would sacrifice itself to activate the gate. Jin Hyuk licked his lips, and at that moment, a green vortex appeared in the statue's stomach that had swallowed the key. It was sacrificing itself to summon higher-level monsters. A completely different kind of magic was flowing out now. Jin Hyuk, too, felt something different. It wasn't that he was afraid or shocked by this unexpected situation. He couldn't control the heat rising in his body that yearned for battle. He would finally get the chance to have a proper fight. Furthermore, if you give up your vintage place and come out, I'd be grateful. If it was the monster he'd dealt with before, it would be better to face it outside rather than inside. After a few moments, something emerged from the shaking gate. Step. What appeared with sounds and lights was a statue with a multitude of arms. The named monster, thousand-armed, thousand-eyes, Avalokiteshvara, appears. The named monster looked around its new location with a benevolent smile and a thick, fishy smell wafting from it. Then it looked at Jin Hyuk. This is surprising. I had no idea that a human who could threaten the stone tower would be among the intruders here. What are you so surprised about? I will also cut down the boss monster here in a few days. Ha ha ha. Such a confident human. I don't know about you, but I do know you have guts. Avalokiteshvara burst into laughter. What was a serious matter to Jin Hyuk, but the monster was treating it as a joke. This was why he hated intelligent monsters. Because the passive effect of communion made them feel attached to him even when he didn't desire it. Stop talking. I want to end this quickly. I want to enjoy a conversation with you. Don't you feel the same? I don't hate to talk, but instead, let's do it with swords and blood or with chicken and beer. I wish there was some soft skin aside from statues with faces. Treasure this moment too little, human. When death comes, you might miss this. And the stone statue pulled a sword out, and with that, each of its countless hands began to grasp its own weapons. Swords, blades, daggers, short swords, spears and axes, mace and bows. It was as if it was a walking armory. In exchange for that cheeky mouth you have, I will cut off the left arm first, and then the left leg, and then I will cut the right arm. The last will be the neck. Sorry, but I prefer my limbs where they are. I will keep them where they belong. It looks like you will taste good. This is why I have a hard time getting tired of humans. Its lips rose up. The monster's killing intent mixed with its magic. This thing was something completely different from the ordinary stone statues here. Jin Hyuk adjusted his balance perfectly as he covered his body as much as possible with his shield. He was prepared for any kind of attack at any time. Jin Hyuk cleared his breathing and ensured that all of his senses were alert. From now on, he cannot even blink his eyes. At that time, an attack that was undetectable to the naked eye ripped audibly through the air. But, left shoulder. The monster's body moved a lot faster than he expected as Jin Hyuk used his shield to deflect the oncoming sword. As iron and iron collided, the air was filled with dazzling sparks. The monster exclaimed with genuine surprise. "Why are you so surprised? Is this your first time having your attack blocked?" Responding to the speed of sound. Not being able to see it yet still reacting. Jin Hyuk had already dealt with this monster hundreds of times. Enough times to imprint the movement and speed in his mind. Of course, that wasn't something just anyone could do. Ha ha ha. This is getting more and more interesting. The monster attempted to attack again. This time, the attack was aimed at his left arm and right leg at the same time. I cannot defend both with the shield. Then, LV2, Ice Formation is activated. A snowflake-shaped shield appeared. As he expected, the ice wouldn't be able to stop the attack, but it could slightly divert its path. Possible. Jin Hyuk hid behind both shields. Of course, the monster wouldn't just stand around watching this. Where? 9 spears were thrown instantly. The shield created by the ice formation shattered. However, not a single spear reached Jin Hyuk. Surely you should be hit. It had aimed for its prey. It had to hit the human. Then why? This has the effect of distorting vision. The layers of life reflected the light and created an illusion. Jin Hyuk then created a gap and grabbed his spear, a proper interval that allowed him to save speed while reducing the range. On the blade of the spear, dark red magic from the blood demon Chi began to dance. The monster moved back and used all of its 1,000 arms to defend. But it was too late, because the spear had already left Jin Hyuk's left hand and pierced through the monster's arm. The monster's face contorted in pain, a feeling it had never felt before. An unfamiliar sharp pain that blew away all reasoning. It felt the desire to tear apart the human in front of it. But the first priority was dealing with the red magic that was spreading inside its arm. Poison. No, something similar. Similar. The blood demon Chi was less destructive than the sword grave. In exchange, just a single wound made by the blood demon Chi would cause terrible damage over time. The monster simply chose to rip off the affected arm without mercy. You want to live. He thought that at least some other attempts would be made. But its attachment to life felt strange as it pulled out its own arm. Don't act too arrogant. If you were aiming, you should have aimed for the head. What are you trying to do with just one arm? Because I know I cannot kill you even if I aim for your head. If you wanted to kill a named monster, normal means could not be used. So he deliberately aimed for the arm. To be precise, he aimed for the arm that held a jewel among its many weapons. Jin Hyuk pulled out the jewel from the severed arm, and took out an item he had kept in the subspace inventory for this moment. Grimoire of the Feltaris Principality. That? Avalokiteshvara frowned as he quickly took up a stance. It became wary because of the unusual energy from the relic, but it was too late. It can blame itself for neglecting one arm. Jin Hyuk merged the 2 items into one. Grimoire of the Feltaris Principality and 1,000 Hands, 1,000 Eyes, Avalokiteshvara's jewel, are fused. With an intense light, the 2 relics began to react. Fusion successful. Lemmigaton of the Golden Dawn. Acquisition difficulty. S. Description. The written copy of the grimoire recorded by the Great Solomon. As a divine artifact that reproduced the essence of the 72 demons, it allows the wielder to display the power of magic-type abilities to the extreme. However, since it is not yet complete, the maximum increase of ability is limited. After a few moments, the light faded. Finally, I have you in my hands. Jin Hyuk smiled. His heart was beating quickly, even though this wasn't yet the complete relic. It doesn't matter. Great. Now. Jin Hyuk looked at the status window of his opponent with the eye of gluttony, because he needed to check on everything before an all-out fight. Name: Thousand-armed and thousand-eyed Avalokiteshvara. Gender: none. Age: level. Strength, agility, stamina, magic, karma. Unique ability: Mandala. Skill: the skill window cannot be observed due to the Eye of Gluttony's insufficient level. Copy condition: Avalokiteshvara detests Western magic. Create a large and beautiful sculpture that insults the opponent using ice magic within the time limit of 5 minutes. However, you must also select an appropriate song to match it during the sculpting process. If you successfully do it, you can copy the opponent's unique ability. Wait. Did something malfunction? Jin Hyuk blinked his eyes in disbelief. But the contents of the copy condition didn't change. This system is quite a crazy one. Last time it had told him to take classes under Kadric to receive the Necromancer class, and now, a song and a sculpture? There was also the additional point that they had to match with each other. Jin Hyuk held onto his forehead. He didn't care much about the other things, but how could the system make a condition where he needed to creatively insult his target? He could feel his head beginning to hurt. But no matter how bizarre the conditions were, he wasn't about to give up, because this was the only place where he could get the Mandala ability under the 25th floor. No matter what, this is the only music that goes along well with ice. Thousand-armed Avalokiteshvara became angry while watching Jin Hyuk messing around. Jin Hyuk selected the song, raised the volume to maximum, and a very familiar melody began to fill the air while he was posing with a golden wig on his head. The only words he said were, "Don't ask me anything. I hate it too." The monster's face was distorted horribly. "You bastard! What is that?" A roaring voice filled the room. Its swords began to move, seeking to deliver death. Please, don't ask me why. Because Jin Hyuk himself didn't know why he was doing this. But of course. Answer me, human! It was impossible for the opponent to just let this pass. Enraged, it began to gather up its magic. Golden magical energy began to gather in the weapons it held. It was a power different from either sword or divine energy. Mandala. It had activated the strongest ability of Buddhism, energy that embodied all things. The jokes end here. From now on, I will use everything to kill you. It looked like Jin Hyuk had touched a sensitive spot. The monster must have slaughtered countless humans till now, but not once had it used Mandala. But, will you be fine? Jin Hyuk shrugged. What do you mean? If you use Mandala and lose, you won't be able to have any excuses? It wasn't the first time that Jin Hyuk had seen someone who declared they would use their full strength to kill an opponent. None of them had ever ended up winning. He would just stay quiet and act it out if it was him. Ah well. This probably wasn't something a person playing a kid's song should comment about. What a treacherous human being. Who dares to talk about my defeat when you cannot even live for 100 years? Cracks began to form on the ground. This was the start. A golden wave of light began to move through the ground. However, the all-destroying power of the Mandala stopped right in front of Jin Hyuk. Glacier Formation Blizzard has been activated. The ice began to take the form of a giant hexahedron roughly 3 meters in size. A pure white coldness emerged from the great magic circle made of ice. This is amazing. His hands were trembling as it was difficult to control this magic. As expected, this is a higher-level skill. The newly acquired skill of glacier formation is entirely different from the ice formation skill he's used so far. If ice formation simply solidified water in the air around him, boosting his skill allowed him to create ice itself from nothing. Those Western tricks! The monster grunted. Western trick. Jin Hyuk smiled. If it thought of it in that way, then it was making a big mistake. At a location far from the site of the battle. Still observing from their tree, Li Qiao and Molena sighed in disbelief. I cannot believe it. Not just his sword, but even his ice magic is this good? Was it possible to have so many skills in one player? As the battle continued, their eyes that had been observing this battle began to change. They couldn't help it, as everything they were seeing now made no sense. The monster's overwhelming force was clearly a sign that it was a named monster that had suddenly appeared. And Jin Hyuk, who was confronting it head-on, looked like someone from beyond the realm of humans. This was all too unreal. Even within our association, someone who can use that level of ice magic doesn't… Li Qiao couldn't say anything further. It would be difficult to identify a mage as strong as this. Molena shared his unspoken thoughts. She licked her lips as she felt an urge to say something. Can we win against those two by fighting all out? They were both warlocks who specialized in close-range fights. Even if the opponent was an S rank, they had been confident they could take him down. But Molena wasn't too sure now. She was only confident about taking the monster down. It will be difficult. Li Qiao mumbled with a stiff expression. From a rational standpoint, victory was not guaranteed with just the two of them. Perhaps they needed to even assume the worst-case scenario would happen. Let's give up Li Qiao. We cannot do this alone. Unless an executive rank comes. No. If we go, then the positions we have built up in the association till now will collapse. So what? We might die there? But you want to take the risk? No. Li Qiao shook his head. He had no intentions of recklessly gambling with his life. But he also had no intention of giving up on the mission. I will use the relic. It was a relic that had been given to him. It had a usage limitation. After using it once, he would need to wait 3 months before using it again. That was why he didn't want to use it if possible. But there was no other way now. He had to complete the mission at all costs. Look at this. It seemed like Kadric hadn't been the only one here. Jin Hyuk glanced to the side. He could feel unfamiliar magic. From what he had noticed until now, they were at least higher leveled than Kadric. They were probably hidden cards prepared by the Demonic Human Association to complete the task. This is good. This time, he would have the chance to learn about the association. But as those thoughts ran through his mind, a tingling sensation touched his wrist. Where are you looking now? A spear the monster threw had pierced through the ice shield. A trembling spear had stopped mere inches away. If he hadn't activated his second layer of shields, the spear would have pierced his body instead of lightly touching his hands. Right. This monster was still here. Interrogating the Demonic Human Association agents was important, but he first needed to deal with the demon in front of him. Glacier Formation Polar Ice Arrow is activated. Over 20 ice arrows were created in an instant. The scale of this skill clearly different compared to the ice formation he had previously used. The weapon produced by the skill resembled a whale-catching harpoon over 3 meters in length. However, it was impossible to inflict damage on the monster with this alone. Because in addition to being able to gnaw away at an opponent's magic, Mandala also gave the user the ability to predict attacks. It wasn't for nothing that this skill was considered one of the best, in that case. I will use both medium and short-range attacks. No matter how well the skill could predict, there was a limit to how many attacks it could read. Jin Hyuk nodded to himself and took out his dagger from the subspace inventory. Its blade was quickly covered with black energy. In order to fight against the Mandala, he activated Swordgrave. Until now, you have only used ice from far away. Now it seems like you want to approach me in person. Before that song ends, I want to bring an end to this. Let It Go would end before long. There wasn't much time left. The two magics collided in the air, filling it with blue sparks. And at that moment, now, alongside 20 ice arrows, Jin Hyuk sprinted forward. The view in front of him was changing too fast. His high-running speed, all the spears thrown at him, and even breathing were becoming difficult. Still, thanks to shallow breath that he had copied earlier, he could survive this without collapsing. It was here that he was ready for a long battle. At that moment, Jin Hyuk swung his dagger sharply. He intercepted a spear that was coming from the front. The deflected spear rotated in the air, but its attack didn't end there. The spear that was twisting in the air was imbued with Mandala energy and desired his death. Please hit the like button so more people can enjoy this awesome story, and subscribe to the channel for more videos. Now let's get back to the story. The sky began to turn black as if a storm was approaching. What is this? It doesn't give me time to get bored at all. Despite the desperate situation, Jin Hyuk managed to look up. At first glance, this looked like a wide-area spell, but those types of attacks had one rule. Each attack's inherent rule was simply to aim at the target's vital points. In an instant, Jin Hyuk grasped the movement of the flying spears. He had nothing to fear, because it was something he had done countless times. Remember the rhythm of that time. Jin Hyuk relaxed his body. Light, yet soft. Relive those experiences again. The black energy on his dagger burned more fiercely. Jin Hyuk then heard the sound of the wind howling. The spears were close enough to touch his hair. It is getting cut. It was at that moment. A dazzling blaze flared up, the roar of metal against metal. Jin Hyuk stood in place and moved his dagger, left to right to down, and then back to up. As if he had realized where each attack would come from, Jin Hyuk did not miss a single oncoming spear. If anyone was watching, it would be a thrilling sight to behold. As time passed, the monster yelled out in frustration. Damn it! Just how? A single spear was then aimed at the ground right in front of Jin Hyuk, a technique to use the uneven floors to hinder his movement. A rip away. It would not be easy to recognize because it was mixed into the rain of spears. Noticing it was one thing, but reacting to it was more difficult. But even that distraction was expected. Jin Hyuk grabbed the spear that had bounced from the floor with his bare hands. He stopped that too? The monster stuttered. He could not help but feel embarrassed, as even that attack was blocked immediately. Additionally, wasn't Jin Hyuk still dealing with the other spears falling on him? The monster's hands would soon become empty. Now I think everything has been shown, but if there is nothing more novel and interesting from you, I will finish it soon. Jin Hyuk walked forward, a light and soft step, and one thought crystallizes like an icy blast. And just in time, the last part of the song was approaching. It was as if it signaled that the fight was about to conclude. Did that casual tone hurt its pride? The monster erupted in anger and rage as it said, "You do not get to decide when the fight ends. I do." Thousand Hands. Avalokiteshvara brings out swastika spear. Die. A golden spear was filled with mandala to the utmost limit. Contrary to its heavy appearance, the spear moved as fast as a bullet. And the spear then pierced Jin Hyuk's body. No, it only looked as if it had happened for a moment. Mirage? The monster's slowly appearing smile became overwritten with sudden shock. It was an optical illusion effect created by the diffusion of ice in the area. The monster had no choice but to become wholly deceived because of the carelessness that its anger had induced. The man was more dangerous than initially thought. The monster then heard a terrifying voice from underneath. "Let me hit you this once." Jin Hyuk was tired of constantly being on the defensive. Needless to say, it was annoying and frustrating. So, no more, no less. Just get hit once. Glacier Formation Sword of the Sky is activated. A stream of ice falls from the sky. Glacier Formation Sword of the Land is activated. A stream of ice rises from the ground. Due to the excessive coldness spread around the area, an icy mist began to rise up and made it difficult to see. The monster's body, which had been trapped inside the mist, froze instantly. Even if it was a named monster, this extreme cold energy was not something it could resist. With this, do you think you can trap me? No. This was just to pass the time. There was one more thing left to do. Jin Hyuk began to make something out of the ice once again. A long and thick object, gently cut and smoothened. Little by little, the ice took shape. How many seconds had passed? Ice formation is complete. As the blizzard cleared, the completed item was revealed. Amazing. Jin Hyuk nodded his head as if he was satisfied. A large middle finger emerged from the ice. Big, beautiful, and dignified. An absolutely perfect piece of art that was also optimally designed to ridicule the opponent. You damned human. After imprisoning you in infinite hell for eons, I will make you reincarnate into a worm. The monster shook its body wildly as it became crazy in futile rage in its icy prison. The condition has been met. You successfully copied the unique ability, Mandala, S. Mandala. Acquisition difficulty, S. Description. A unique ability that can be used by players who have mastered the Dharma, Buddhist teaching, and can apply special powers to weapons like sword energy and divine power. You can also use the effect that allows you to predict the direction of the opponent's attack. Copied skill is saved in the memory of the world. After achieving the unique set of conditions, Jin Hyuk finally got it. The new unique ability, Mandala. Then now. Let's try it now. Jin Hyuk used his magic carefully. A warm and cozy feeling. It was as if he could feel everything in existence. This ice. In the meantime, the monster continued to struggle to break through the ice. Its own mandala was letting out golden sparks, but it was nowhere near enough. Such a sad sight to see. Why did it hurt his heart so much when idiots are unable to do their work properly? Don't use your power unnecessarily. You have no way out anyway. Nonsense! There is no place I cannot escape from with my power. No, it is impossible. Mandala is indeed a good unique ability, but you are using it wrong. What? If you open the door through meditation, you should be able to maintain your composure. But you are surrounded in anger and rage, unable to control the flow of magic. In such a state, it wouldn't even be able to use half of the ability's true power. How dare you mock me with that mouth? What do you even know about this ability? What did he know? He at least knew more than this monster that had spent tens of thousands of years in vain. The essence of the ability, its inherent value, and everything about it. He would show it. How to use the mandala. Unique ability Mandala is activated. An indescribable cloud of magic was created as a golden light shone on Jin Hyuk's hand. No way. How did you get that power? The monster was shocked. It knew this ability. Now, the ability it beheld was a more perfect version of what it wielded. It isn't possible. How could a human learn Mandala? Even monks who had trained for decades would find it difficult to sense. But no matter how much it tried to deny reality, the aura of the Mandala could not be denied. This was its new reality. Let's end this now. Jin Hyuk pulled back the hand that contained the golden light, his forearm muscles bulging. Wait! Stop! The monster screamed as it panicked. The lighting left Jin Hyuk's hand and pierced the monster. You have acquired the key to the stone statue. Status windows appeared one after another. Having managed to defeat a named monster, Jin Hyuk managed to gain 2 levels. Is it finally done? Jin Hyuk frowned as he found it difficult to bear the pain surging through his body. I overdid it. He had hunted down the undead and Kadric and even dealt with this named monster. That meant his magic was slightly drained. He needed a break. Of course, there was something he needed to do before that as he activated his status window. Name, Kang Jin Hyuk. Gender, male. Age, 27. Level, 21. Strength, 16. Agility, 16. Stamina, 16. Magic, 41. Rift, 1000. Luck, 10. Adaptive, 10. Stat points, 6. Coins, additional settlement. In progress. Occupation, none. Unique abilities, Fusion, Swordgrave, Blessing of the Stars, Anubis's Judgment, Blood Demon Chi, Mandala. Skills, LV5 Element of Fire, LV4 Eye of Gluttony, LV3 Communion, LV3 Stigma on Souls, LV3 Monopoly, LV3 Shallow Breath, LV1 Ice Formation, LV2 Daylight, LV1 Giant Grasp, LV1 Soul Chasing Sword. His newly acquired abilities and stat points. Stats should be invested in magic. When he considered cases where battle might become prolonged, his focus had to be on magic. Magic increases from 41 to 47. As his magic stat was raised, the pain and swelling on his hands began to subside. Now, I feel like I can relax. In the end, using the mandala to the maximum to generate lightning took a significant toll on his body. But the harder he worked, the more results he obtained. Now all he had to do was find a nice bed to lay down on and release the fatigue. Right. That would be the usual path. Once the day passed and night came, he would rest. So they need to come before it turns dark. Jin Hyuk turned to the forest. Even at this moment, he was still watching the people from the Demonic Human Association. They probably thought they had the upper hand with a surprise attack, but a completely different future awaited them. Nighttime in the Tower of Trials was a little special. The warm temperature during the day dropped rapidly once it became night, which increased the ferocity and attack power of the monsters roaming about. So, at night, most players stopped hunting and went to find a safe place. This was common sense, because for the average player, there was no need to take risks. An hour had passed since Jin Hyuk dealt with the named monster. Jin Hyuk sat in front of the shrine, at the boundary between it and the expansive bamboo forest. Reminds me of old times. The place where he had spent the most time sleeping and broadcasting in the tower. After hunting like a madman, he always looked for a place where he could see the night sky. And this spot wasn't a bad place for a break, especially if he could see the meteors falling through the sky. It's also great here since I could get bamboo shoots as well as other materials on this floor of the tower. After making a fire, Jin Hyuk placed bamboo shoots, rice, and rock salt inside a bamboo barrel and put it over the heat to boil. In addition, he added 3 of the iron-clad shrimp that could be caught in the valley. His stomach was growling. He took a spoon scoop of the food and put it in his mouth. The soft, warm food made its way pleasantly down his throat. The quality of the shrimp meat, which was plump in the middle, created a fantastic texture. What a fantastic taste. Next time, I need to start copying some cooking skills. As one started going higher in the tower, a large variety of foods would appear. Desert veal that was full of flavor, a rainbow crab from the sea. The 1000 apple was said to have 1,000 types of unique scents, ingredients that you couldn't find outside the tower. Such treasures were in here that he could enjoy once more. Oh, it smells good. Looks like a tasty meal. A pair of people emerged from the bamboo forest. They were a Chinese man and an alluring Western beauty. It was Molena and Li Qiao. Ah, we do not have any bad intentions. We just came here following the light. As long as we can avoid the night dew, we'll be fine. Molena and Li Qiao calmly approached the bonfire. What was with these two? Were they planning on acting like regular players? For real? This is ridiculous. At this point, he didn't even know what to think of these two. These looked more foolish than the ones before. Would they even be able to win if they approached him after revealing their identity? He really wished they did. That way, he can spend the long night without being bored. If it helps avoid the cold, sit down. Jin Hyuk pointed to the bonfire. Thank you. I am Molena. I am Li Qiao. Excuse us for our actions. The two of them sat down around the fire. At least the fact that they wanted to avoid the dangers of the night wasn't a lie. Their half-frozen arms and legs looked clearly desperate for warmth. You must have suffered a lot. Don't say it. Masked Appa cannot understand how much we suffered around trees all day. Right. It must have been difficult. How much trouble would they have gone through by acting like mice that were peeping on others? The food is quite nice. Would you like some? Jin Hyuk handed them a bamboo bowl. Inside, the appetizingly plump shrimp and white rice tempted with their appearance. Don't think too much. He knew that they were starving too. Molena gulped down her saliva with a conflicted expression, but didn't reach out for the food. This was suspicious. She didn't know what he had done to the food. However, perhaps because of her strong appetite, she was tempted to take it. On the other hand, Li Qiao drew a straight line. We are fine. I am sorry for putting it like this, but I do not want to touch food from someone we do not know, especially if they have covered their face. You seem to care too much about the mask? Isn't it obvious? If you didn't have something to hide, you wouldn't be wearing a mask. Well, if it is making you uncomfortable, I can take it off. What? Really? They were both shocked at Jin Hyuk's words. The person whose identity they were trying to discover simply said he would reveal it? No wonder they were shocked. Of course, it is no fun to simply take it off, so let's play a simple game. Game? It seems like we have things we are curious about each other, so let's take turns asking questions. If my questions are answered, I will remove the mask as soon as the game is done. A game that involved an exchange of information. Li Qiao turned his head. There is no way to confirm the authenticity of our words. It didn't matter if he even lied. On the other hand, opponents who didn't know who they were might become careless. Even if we accept this offer, we have nothing to lose. Molena, too, nodded her head and whispered to her companion. There are 5 minutes left for the relic to activate. It should be fine if we use the time to our advantage. Any worries they might have wouldn't last long. Interesting. It wouldn't be bad to pass the time like this. Li Qiao responded first, and at that moment, Anubis's judgment has been activated. A transparent wave was released from Jin Hyuk. Caught them. Jin Hyuk smiled. He knew they would accept his offer. It was because they needed time. He could feel a unique energy wave emanating from the woman called Molena. This was magic he had felt several times when playing Tower of Trials in the past. The coin of Caligula. A coin that held the image of the Roman tyrant Caligula. What kind of tricks did they prepare? Well, this relic wasn't a bad choice. Its only real drawback was that it took time to activate. However, once fully activated, it had the terrifying effect of completely breaking down its target. The relic, which would force its target to confess everything they knew without using time-consuming torture, was a useful item. They know my body has not recovered yet and are trying to be more certain of their victory. Their intention to avoid any direct clashes was clear. Amazing. Truly amazing. As long as its existence and activation time was known, the coin of Caligula was simply a regular coin. Don't they know there is always another person ahead? Jin Hyuk smiled. I will not ask the first question. You can ask me. There should be questions about name or affiliation. If you want me to reveal my identity in the first question, then playing the game is no use. It is only after the game is done that the mask will come off. Then I will change the question. Do you have any colleagues here besides yourself? He thought they'd ask something else, but this was too realistic. It must be difficult to accept that someone had come solo for a boss raid. Therefore, they must have thought that he had a comrade around. Since the range of the coin was limited to 10 meters, they were trying to discover any variable. I came here alone, and I will leave here alone. I see. This time, I will ask. From the looks of it, it seems like you have come to hunt the boss. Why did you only watch? We were looking to go inside the temple at the right time. It is such a notorious place that we had to be careful. The response sounded too cautious, but they still answered since this was just the first question. 2 left. Li Chao asked the second one. If you are climbing the tower, there has to be something you wish for. Be it power, women, or fame. I want to know what motivates you. Oh. At Li Chao's words, Jin Hyuk raised his eyebrows. I thought they were here to kill me. If the conditions were right, it seemed like they still hoped they would be on the same side. I have something I do want, but if I say it out loud, do you have the ability to make it happen? Both of them were still shivering from the cold as they had been up on the tree for too long. Well, how we look right now might be unconvincing, but do not worry. We have got enough power. The second answer with this. He only needed one more question answered. Jin Hyuk let the unconvincing answer slide. At the same time, his polite tone became cold. If you have the power to do that, then, can you give me a seat on the round table? What was that? How do you know about the round table? The two shouted in surprise at the same time. The round table was the highest executive gathering in the Demonic Human Association. They could never have imagined those words coming from the mouth of an outsider. But don't they realize? The fact that he was a veteran meant that he understood the origin and use of the expression of the round table. I haven't heard your answer yet. Can you answer me? Of course, I cannot answer that. Li Chao grit his teeth. How would you even think we could do that? Molena suddenly stood up. He knew she would say that. Actually, I wouldn't take the position even if you gave it to me. Even if there were no conditions, he wouldn't take up the executive position in their association. They also no longer needed to do this clumsy acting. Conditions have been met. Because Anubis's judgment had begun. The ground began to shake. Li Chao hastily increased the distance between them. It was an instinctive reaction after sensing unusual magic. 5 minutes have passed, Molena shouted. The long-awaited time had come. Once the coin of Caligula was used, even an enemy of this strength could be defeated, because no player has the ability to defend their thoughts. But, no, relics won't activate. Jin Hyuk smiled. What was that? Li Chao pulled out a dagger. That coin, it will be of no use to anyone right now. I delayed the activation time by 5 minutes. Don't bullshit us. How can you? Wait. It is real. Molena, standing next to him, had her expression darken instantly. She had no doubt. The coin hasn't been sufficiently given magic yet. The guy did something. He must have done something to suppress our magic. What do you mean? We didn't even eat the food. The only possibility was the dish that Jin Hyuk had offered them. But how could this happen when they didn't even touch it? Jin Hyuk snapped his finger. At the same time, choose a champion to execute Judgment of Anubis. The sound came from the shrine behind them, its volume spreading like a breeze in the bamboo forest. What is this? A reaction to magic? Li Qiao and Molena shouted at the same time. Until a moment ago, they had only felt the presence of 3 people. It was something they had checked multiple times after arriving here. But that was no longer the case, because a new source of energy had appeared from inside the building. Totem Pole, Great General of the Heavens, has been designated as the Great Warrior. Totem Pole, Female General of the Underground, has been designated as the Great Warrior. The earth began to shake as 2 long-haired trees appeared, each about 5 meters tall. Totem Pole, Great General of the Heavens, looks at the enemies. Totem Pole, Female General of the Underground, is waiting for the caster's command. They were likely a pair of ancient trees that protected a village in the past. They were guardians of the land that was optimized for defense. No. Li Qiao was shocked. He would have been less shocked if the enemy had been a lich or a death knight. I've never heard of such ability. Even Melina could not comprehend the situation. Right. That's the proper reaction. The ability to handle summoned creatures was not common. Even among necromancers, those who could control the undead only amounted to 3%. And elementalists who could deal with spirits were rare enough that less than 100 of them existed worldwide. And those who could actually handle spirits efficiently could be counted on 2 hands. Therefore, none of them could even attempt this. A player who summoned a god. How the hell could this happen? Li Qiao shouted with a look of despair. Jin Hyuk looked at the approaching General Totems with a smile. It has been a while since I have seen them together at the same time. He had chosen this campsite, in particular, to use these 2 through Anubis's judgment. His magic had almost been entirely drained after dealing with the named monster. This was a stage he had created to show the system's loopholes to them. The 2 of them had happily jumped into the trap all by themselves. Don't bother trying to run. Jin Hyuk glanced over at the 2 who were backing away. You will pursue us? Do you think we didn't know you haven't recovered yet? Please hit the like button so more people can enjoy this awesome story, and subscribe to the channel for more videos. Now let's get back to the story. Right. I cannot. A chase would last too long if it was just him. In his current body's state, it would be near impossible. But I will have the great generals do it for me instead. The moment Jin Hyuk said those words, the female general of the underground activates exit not allowed. If we kill him, then these things will be gone naturally. Oh, smart guy. You are right. The summons will return to their original location if the caster is killed. But is that possible? If they had watched the fight against the named monster, they should understand that they couldn't win against Jin Hyuk. Didn't it terrify them that despite their regular person act and the coin of Caligula, Jin Hyuk was still fine? Don't look down on us. Even a mouse fights back when it is cornered. Li Qiao bared his fangs. But Jin Hyuk had already seen the magic circle drawn under Li Qiao's feet. Faint magic continued to spread along the ground. It was a short-distance spatial movement spell that necromancers often used. Look at this. Was he thinking of running away by pretending to fight? Alex, who he had met in the auction house, and Kadric, his teacher. How come all these necromancers did the same thing once cornered? At this point, it felt like their association just taught everyone to escape when in these kinds of situations. I wanted to capture you as harmlessly as possible, but you are asking for more. Naturally, he had no intention of letting them go. No one would release prey that they had caught with such effort. Jin Hyuk nodded his head to the totem pole generals behind him. Suppress them. A cold command. Totem, Great General of Heavens, activates the Punish One to command 100. An invisible fist smashed against Li Qiao's head. A scream of pain erupted from his mouth. Before he could even think, another attack arrived. Li Qiao's body shook with each hit. Each punch was so quick and powerful enough to crush his body. Once more. And one more time. It took less than 30 seconds for all of Li Qiao's bones to shatter. Li Qiao dropped to the ground with his body covered in blood. His condition was so dire that it was a miracle that he was still alive. Rumble. Molena, who was next to him, trembled uncontrollably. A G-Guardian deity. How the hell can we win against this? There was less than a minute left until the coin of Caligula could be triggered, but she didn't dare use it. She was utterly terrified of Jin Hyuk, who had shown abilities beyond her comprehension. Jin Hyuk approached Molena. It seems that the situation got roughly settled. So, let's converse like a civilized person. It would be much simpler if he could use the Eye of Gluttony to read their minds. But they were both skilled players. It meant that it would not be easy. The only way to make use of this ability was to use it to discriminate between her truth and lies. LV4 Eye of Gluttony is activated. Jin Hyuk's eyes shone. I will be asking questions now and want only honest answers. What are you curious about? Molena gulped. I have known about your existence for a long time, but honestly, I don't know the motive. If the tower isn't climbed, humanity will perish. So, why are you disturbing other players and doing such strange things? That? Molena flinched. At that moment. Do not speak. Seal your lips, Molena. Li Chao shouted. Oh! Despite being crushed to a pulp, he still retained consciousness. He must have formidable mental strength. It is nice to be loyal to the place you belong to, but you should know the time and place to express it. There were two people he could question. Even if one died, he could just ask the other person. Jin Hyuk snapped his fingers. Never! You can never say it. Li Chao shouted at Molena. And that was that. Those were his last words as an invincible crushed him to death. Even though there were just two people, it was still gruesomely terrifying. Ike! He is dead! Li Chao is really red! Molena, who lost strength in her legs, fell to the ground. Her complexion became pale white. Nice. Now that he had used enough persuasion methods, it was time to get things done. My principle is to never let those who try to kill me leave alive, but if you tell the truth, I will spare you. Spare me? Molena looked at him with wide eyes. Right. Inside information is valuable information. So if you give me useful information, I will hold up my side of the deal. A momentary silence. What escaped her next was a voice that had given up on everything. I get it, but I don't know the details. As Jin Hyuk made to snap his fingers again, Molena added hastily, No, really. For real? First, we are a point organization, and Li Qiao and I are assassins, so we do not get any information other than our immediate missions. Eye of Gluttony detects the target's words. Molena is telling the truth. So that wasn't a lie. Who gives the mission? I don't know his real name, but we call him Lancelot. Lancelot was one of the Knights of the Round Table in Arthurian legend. It was a codename. That meant that he had completed his second occupation quest. Continue. It was said that, if we could collect all of the tower's relics, we would survive even when humanity perished. On top of that, we would even get a reward for it. Relics? At her words, Jin Hyuk narrowed his eyes. Those were meaningful words. I don't know more than that. This is all I know. Eye of Gluttony detects the target's words. Molena is telling the truth. Right. I believe you. Jin Hyuk nodded his head. The information he received was fragmented, but he could understand it. The Knights of the Round Table and the 12 cursed divine relics. Additionally, there would be a reward for collecting them. Clues added up here and there and gave him insight into what they were aiming for. Jin Hyuk smiled. This is a lot more than I thought. These people were crazier than he expected. He had guessed that these people would try to clear a hidden quest, but it was likely something that was related to the summoning of the Demon King. This was going to be a lot of fun. Maybe this would become a new addition with new variables. Jin Hyuk nodded his head as if he was satisfied. Thank you for giving me useful information. It really helped me a lot. He had obtained information that was useful for planning. Some of his doubts had also cleared up. Can I go then? Molena asked with fear and worry on her face. No. You said you'll spare me if I tell you what I know. You said you will send me away. Don't worry. I will keep my promise. He had no intention of killing people carelessly after they had proven useful. Why would he throw away a useful piece after a single use? He could use her again in the future. I just need you to promise me one thing. Promise? Right. Promise. Not with her mouth or a pinky promise, but an absolute promise. An oath on her soul. LV3 Stigma of the Soul is activated. Jin Hyuk's fingers shone brightly. It is a sign that you must obey my words unconditionally in the future. If you try to backstab me or rebel, you will die, so make the decision carefully. She could choose to either die or obey. Only two choices. And Molena. I don't want to die. She chose to survive. After that harsh first night, the warm sunlight shone down on the campsite. Jin Hyuk stretched out his body and got up. Such a refreshing morning. It felt as if the fatigue he had accumulated was now gone. Everything had worked out easier than he expected last night. Thanks to nutritional supplements, his condition also felt like it was at its peak. It's fine now for me to go all out. In the last boss raid that remained, there would be a hectic fight incomparable to anything he had done in the past. It would be more of a war than a fight. Jin Hyuk calmly reviewed the overall plan of the raid he had in his head. In his hand was the key he had gotten from the named monster. Ah, wait, before going for the boss. I almost forgot. There was something he had to do. Jin Hyuk activated the broadcast system. What he had to write was a notice. Boss raid will not be streamed. I'll edit it later and upload the attack video, so those who want can see it. It was simple and short notice. Well, I drew enough attention, so there's no need to go live until the final fights. His purpose was to increase the number of views on the eventual video and raise awareness for the unknown channel. He had no plans of collecting a peanut gallery. Jin Hyuk reached out in front of him while holding the key. It was an empty space with nothing, but the moment the key came in contact with a point in it. Clack! There was a sound of something clicking. The key of the stone statue responds. The master of the third floor has answered your call. At the same time, 2 red status windows appeared. A humongous gate began to manifest in front of him. Its size was incomparable to the gate that had ushered in the unnamed monster yesterday. Oh! Even Jin Hyuk couldn't hide his reaction. It was so wide that its ends were hidden by the bamboo forest. Its height was so tall that it felt like it pierced the sky. And soon, a large number of stone statues appeared from beyond the gate. It was an army of 30,000. Most of them were heavy soldiers of 1 meter in height, though a few reached a monstrous length of 50 meters. And in the center of this formation was a stone statue that was most splendidly carved. That thing was the master of the third floor. To be precise, it was the thing yawning from atop the stone statue. Is it just one challenger this time? A familiar voice spoke out from atop the statue. Jittery. Goosebumps rose up on Jin Hyuk's skin, as expected. Is this the magic of a boss monster? The boss monster of the third floor had relatively weak magic for its level. This was because most of its magic was dispersed across the many stone statues under its control. Still, its presence was enough to make his body heavy, as expected of a boss monster. Jin Hyuk glanced at the opponent through the eye of gluttony. But status window cannot be viewed due to the extreme level difference with the target. What came back was an expected phrase, but then, luck and adaptive stats have neutralized the level difference. Looking through the status window of the target, 2 status windows appeared. Did the luck stat, which failed yesterday, work now? Jin Hyuk cheered a little. Name, soulless. Age, unknown. Level, 105. Strength, 72. Agility, 101. Stamina, 79. Magic, 93. Karma, 128. Unique ability, Heartless Army. Skills, LV-17 Desire of Heaven. LV-15 Group Command. LV-14 Identify Weakness. LV-14 Military Strategy. Copy condition. Since Mandala is below level 15, it is impossible to copy the unique ability or skill of Soulless. The various raids from the guilds had come here and simply fed the monster with kills. Considering that it would take over a year for an average player to get a 3-digit stat, this was fast. Is this why no one was confident of clearing it? A boss from the third floor was easy as shit when compared to the dragons on the upper floor. But this wasn't too bad. In other words, it means that I should be careful. Besides, the stronger the enemy, the more satisfied his subscribers would feel. Jin Hyuk smiled. You're laughing? Ah, Sorry. I was thinking about something else. So, what was the question you asked? I asked if you were here alone? Well, as you can see, unlike a certain someone, I don't hide behind subordinates, Jin Hyuk said. The eyes of his opponent narrowed at these words. It was a slight change of expression on that face that was full of pride. Jin Hyuk then began to gather up his magic. It seems that you are confident in the battle between troops. I personally like melee battles quite a bit. So, let's stick together. One of them would have to die to prove who was right. After those words, the strange-looking chessboard appeared from his subspace inventory. The first chessboard has been activated. Blue lines began to draw shapes along the ground, lines upon lines that met to make square plates. It all proceeded as planned. And then Jin Hyuk took the statues that he had received from Lee Yuri. They were thousands of chess pieces carved from marble. Of course, there weren't just pieces or toys to be played on a board. They were works of art sculpted by summoner Lee Yuri and imbued with magic through engraved runes. Each chess piece would fulfill its role as a soldier. The idea is novel. If that's the way it is, I'd be able to play as a soldier myself. Seeing the chess pieces laid out on the board, Soulless looked interested. However, after a brief moment of surprise came words of ridicule. What are you going to do with those little stones? Wait and see. It isn't over yet. Just shut your mouth and don't say anything. Jin Hyuk pulled out another item that would flourish the ending. It was an item that he had obtained after tricking Anubis on the first underground level of the Tower of Trials. Giant pill has been used. A giant pill. The pills he had collected in large quantities were being infused into the body of the chess pieces, and the chess pieces, which had been less than 10 centimeters tall, began to expand. Knights, bishops, and rooks standing 2 meters tall were now lined up. In front of them were the pawns armed with heavy armor and spears. The chess pieces no longer looked like toys. Looking at the majestic appearance of his soldiers, who would laugh now? Did it finally realize the situation? The smile on its face had vanished entirely. Gulp. Soulless grit its teeth. You. He had thought that the human was just another fly. Just another mortal that would be trampled down with a gesture. The human, who should be the most insignificant thing here, now had a large army that couldn't be ignored. And with that, this chapter comes to an end. I hope that you liked today's video, and if you did, hit that like button as today's like aim is 1,000 likes. Comment Part 9 below for next part. Also, consider subscribing with the notification bell on to get notified as soon as a new video drops onto the channel. You can also join the channel to support me financially and watch videos before public release. I'll meet you in the next video. Until then, thanks for watching.